need to have 24 or 26 parking spots.
6 and 7, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. We don't worry about that. Blow it anywhere. Let's go. Let's get her
I
done.
don't even have one car, so that might be 1.5.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum for our meeting, and I call this planning meeting under the Planning Act for Monday, September 8th, 2014 to order. We will begin with an adoption of the agenda, and it has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the agenda for the September 8th, 2014 special meeting of Committee of the Whole be adopted. There is an addendum item, and I would ask for a councillor to add this to the agenda, that we also receive this report at some point throughout the meeting. So that's moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King. All those in favor of the amendment? The amendment is carried. Thank you. All those in favor of the agenda as amended? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. We just have another piece of business that we always do before our meetings, and that is disclosure of pecuniary interest. That is any conflicts of interest that any members may have. And I will ask if any member of council has any conflicts of interest that they need to declare at this point.
No, Mr. Mayor.
None? Thank you very much. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act, and I do have some notice requirements that I'm required to read to you. Some of you may have been at public meetings before, some of you may not have. And so I will read these so that we can all be informed about what the meeting is and what the subject matter is. The Planning Act requires under Section 3412 that council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public of a proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw. This public meeting has been called to satisfy these requirements. Notice of this meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters, that's about 400 feet, of the subject property on April 8th and also on April 11th. Additionally, a public poster notice was also placed on the front of the property facing Churchill. The notice provided information on the property and the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw, which is bylaw number 1136, 1987 as amended. In addition to the planning staff providing information on the application, we will also receive any comments which any member of the public may wish to offer this evening. There is, as you know, an attendance list that was on the table outside, and we would ask all present to print their name and complete mailing address if they wish to be notified of the passage of amendment by council, should that occur. If a person or public body decides to file an appeal to a decision made by council in respect to the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw and does not make oral submission at a public meeting or written submissions to the town of Pelham before the proposed amendment is adopted or refused, the Ontario Municipal Board may dismiss all or part of the appeal. In closing, I stress that at this point, no decision has been made on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and therefore any comments received will be taken into account by council in their consideration. As I mentioned earlier, I know that some of you have been here before to council meetings and some of you haven't. Really, council looks at this public meeting as a listening exercise, an opportunity to hear from you, an opportunity to hear from the applicant. We may get into situations where we can answer questions. It depends on the nature of those questions. We may not have the answers here this evening. They may be items that the applicant and staff may have to take into consideration as we move forward. We have received a considerable amount of correspondence to this matter, and we appreciate that. Many of the items were added to our agendas this evening, and as you know, members of council were reading those. And I do know that there is, in addition from members of the public, I think there is a presentation. Potentially this could be a very lengthy meeting, and for it to be most helpful, I think it would be helpful for public comments to concentrate on those areas that maybe might be new, you can underscore something quickly, and if somebody said it already, you can say you agree with that and then move on to something new. We want to make sure that we hear as many comments as possible and we cover as many parts of the topic as we can so that we can make sure that those are addressed when we consider it. Okay? So the way the meeting is structured is that we'll first hear from staff regarding the proposed amendment, then we will hear from the applicant, and then we'll hear public input. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Smythe. Is that who's going to give us the presentation? And why don't you introduce yourself to everyone who may not know who you are and your position?
Good evening, everybody. I am the planner here with the town of Pelham. I'm working with the director of planning on this proposed application, as well as with the proponent.
Thank you. One final thing that I should mention, it reminded me when you introduced yourself, to make sure that the meeting is organized and that it runs as smoothly as possible. Normally when we have meetings like this, information is to be directed through the chair. So you'll hear councillors saying Mr. Mayor or Mr. Chair, and members of the public as well. And then if you ask a question, you ask it to me and we'll try and get the answer for you, etc. Okay? It will help with the orderly flow of the meeting.
Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Smythe, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to go back with respect to the circulation was issued on August 8th as well as August 11th. The reason for the two issue dates, the original circulation list did identify Victoria Gardens as one unit, and it did not distribute to all the individual property owners within that development. So that is the reason for the two issue dates for their notices. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee and council, and those members of the public for attending tonight's meeting. I'm just going to give you, sorry for my back to turn, but this is just protocol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak about the subject parcel, and then I'm going to work my way through to the applicable planning policies, and also with respect to what the proposal is that's been presented tonight. So the subject parcel is located west of Pelham Street on the south side of Church Hill. It's currently has a single detached dwelling with an accessory structure at the rear. It's also it's heavily vegetated with mature trees as well as scattered vegetation throughout the property. Here are some additional photos of the parcel, starting with this one right here. So this was taken in front of the parcel. It's just to orient yourself with its proximity to the downtown area on Pelham Street. This one here is in front of the subject parcel, the entranceway. So just kind of looking into the garage and access into the rear. Also, it delineates the proximity to the adjacent property owner. This picture is taken with me in the rear of the backyard, taking a picture upgrade to the closest neighbor to the west. Down here is depicting the picture. Sorry, I don't know why this isn't working. I'm in front of the parcel, and it's showing the existing 5-unit apartment across the street. I don't know why this is.
Keep pressing.
Sorry, this is here just showing a picture in the rear to the Victory Garden development in the back. And this picture here is just again at the rear of the subject parcel, just looking up towards the existing garage as well as the adjacent existing garage. A little more description of the parcel. It is primarily bounded by single residential dwellings to the east and west. There is the townhouse condominium development to the rear. The multiple dwelling unit across the street, which is the existing 5-unit apartment, which was built in 1930. Across the street, depicted noted by number 3, is the Churchill Meats, which is an existing commercial establishment. Also across the street is the Baptist Church, the institutional use on the northwest corner of Churchill and Pelham. Also, in close proximity at the corner of Churchill and Pelham Street is a commercial professional office establishment. So the purpose of the application, and worth noting again that no formal decisions will be made this evening. The purpose is just really to provide information to both committee and council and to members of the public to solicit more input on the proposal. And at no time any recommendation are being sought this evening. So the purpose of the application, just to make mention, prior to this application coming forward to planning staff, there's a requirement to fulfill pre-consultation meetings. That is any proposal coming forward to have discussions with town staff, in addition to staff with the regional planning department, as well as the conservation authority. And that meeting was held prior to this application being deemed complete and being brought forward for consideration tonight. So the application is seeking the approval for an amendment to the current zoning bylaw, which is an R2 zone, which currently accommodates a single detached dwelling. And the proposal is to accommodate for a 5-plex multi-residential dwelling and apartment units. There are 5 one-bedroom units, approximately 500 square feet. For the proposal that's been provided to date, they have it's been allocated for 8 parking spaces. I'm going to now discuss and provide a general overview of the applicable planning policies as they relate to the proposal. For the first planning legislation, the Planning Act. The Planning Act requires that the planning authorities shall be consistent with the policy statements. That being, shall conform to the policies under provincial plans that are in effect on that date of a planning application being brought forward. Or alternatively, they shall not have a conflict with any of the provincial plans that are in effect. The Provincial Policy Statement 2014. I've identified several policies here. I'm not going to read every one, but worth mentioning is policy 1.1.1b, which notes that healthy and livable safe communities are sustained by accommodating appropriate mix and range of of residential. Under policy 1.4.3, planning authorities shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing types and densities to meet projected requirements of current and future residents through their stages of their life. Policy 4.7 states that the official plan for local municipalities is the important vehicle for the implementation of the provincial policy statement, as well as the other provincial policies that are in effect. And it's for the purpose of long-term planning that is achieved through the official plans. With respect to the Greenbelt and the Niagara Escarpment Plan, this parcel is located outside of those boundaries, and therefore those policies are not applicable in this circumstance. With respect to the Places to Grow growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, these policies encourage and direct development towards the built-up area. Those are being the settlement areas, and in this circumstance, the proposal fits within the Fawn Hill urban boundary area. Under this plan, the municipality shall develop and implement through our official plans strategies to phase in intensification with respect to residential, commercial, institutional. So in that, the proposal, in that the plan is encouraging intensification within the built-up settlement boundaries. It also encourages a range and mix of housing, taking into account of affordable housing needs, and also encourages creation of secondary suites throughout the built-up area. Worth noting is the definitions that have been identified in the growth plan. With respect to complete communities, it states that it meets the people's needs for their daily living throughout an entire lifetime by providing convenient access to an appropriate mix of jobs, local services, a full range of housing, community infrastructure, including affordable housing, schools, recreation, open space, and so forth. With respect to intensification, development of a property site or area at a higher density than currently exists. And it could be, the intensification could apply in these circumstances. To the redevelopment, including the reuse of brownfields, the development or vacant and or underutilized lots within previously developed areas, infill development, or the expansion or conversion of existing buildings. With respect to the regional policy plan, particularly the Amendment 2-209, which pertains to policies in the urban settlement boundaries. They identify numerous criteria that shall be satisfied to consider a proposal. And in this circumstance, under section 5.4.2, under residential areas and housing, the region is encouraging that local municipalities look at proposals that will be attractive and well-designed, and they list a number of different criteria. One of them being provides for an attractive transportation within neighborhoods. In that circumstance, not really applicable. In this one, encourages a variety of connections, incorporates the principles of sustainable building design, is accessible to all persons, emphasizes the entrance points, access to neighborhoods. These are different criteria that the region has requested that we look at with proposals. With respect to the Town of Pelham official plan, I'd like to bring to your attention the addendum that's been presented to committee this evening. The original information report that was uploaded for consideration had noted the designation of this parcel under the official plan as downtown. However, upon review over the weekend, it came to light that there was an incorrect reference to the designation. The correct designation for this parcel is in fact urban living built boundary. Now the reasons for the interpretation, if you will, is the official plan designation map, Schedule A1. There is no lotting of the parcels, and so that is for the misinterpretation with respect to the designation. So noting that the designation is urban living built boundary, this designation is to recognize existing residential areas and to promote the efficient use of existing and planned infrastructure by creating the opportunity for various forms of residential intensification where appropriate. The permitted uses in this designation include single detached residential units, accessory apartments in single detached, semi-detached, townhouses, as well as multiple and apartment dwellings. With reference to policy B113, residential intensification, the town will accommodate at least the 15% of projected housing growth, or around 300 residential dwellings within the existing built boundaries of Fonthill and Fenwick, which is in correspondence and in accordance with the provincial and regional policies. These intensification proposals will be assessed on density relative to the neighborhood, as well as the site, the building design of the proposal, and also noting the issues such as landscaping, access, parking, utilities, and maintenance will also be considered. Intensification opportunities will be encouraged. However, proponents are expected to demonstrate that these proposals are respectful, compatible with, and designed to be integrated with the community or neighborhood which they are proposed. To continue with respect to the policies under the official plan, there is a number of criteria that are applicable with respect to intensification in the urban living area designation. Schedule A1, which I will show in momentarily, it identifies a number of areas that may be good candidates for residential intensification. However, it does not preclude consideration for other sites in the urban living area designation, provided that these sites abut an arterial or collector road, or are located on a local road on a site that is no further than 100 meters from an intersection with an arterial collector road. In this circumstance, the proposal is within the 100 meters of a collector road. Intensification and redevelopment proposals are encouraged to achieve a unit density and housing type that is in keeping with the character and density of the neighborhood where it is proposed. Residential intensification and the redevelopments, that they're located, local road, they shall maintain the unit density and unit type of surrounding neighborhood. But through the zoning bylaw amendment, the increase in the unit density can go up to the 25% of the existing gross density of lands located within 300 meters of the site, provided the resultant development will be characterized by the quality design, landscaping, and suitable building setbacks, parking areas, traffic movements, and such that they will not have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. And lastly, the provision of affordable housing and intensification areas will be encouraged. With reference to policy B115, which are the applicable policies for multiple or apartment development, council shall be satisfied that the proposal will respect the character of adjacent residential neighborhoods in terms of the height, bulk, and massing, can be easily integrated with surrounding land uses, will not create or cause traffic hazards or an acceptable level of congestion in the surrounding area, and is located on a site that has adequate land area to incorporate the required parking, recreational facilities, landscaping, and buffering on site. With respect to the applicable town initiatives and plans, the town's new strategic plan 2014, the mission is to serve and enhance our unique blend of urban and rural lifestyles. The vision is to be the most vibrant, creative, and caring community in Niagara. In meeting these objectives of the vision, council and staff has identified the goals to achieve these. 1, to promote fairness and equity, maintain our small town feel as we grow, provide an environment for economic prosperity, engage the residents in decision making, enhance the quality of life in our town. The proposal falls within the town's community improvement plan area. There are goals to achieve the community improvement. of these goals, it's to promote and to develop an attractive, safe, and efficient community for the existing and future residents of the town. It's also to provide for continued social and economic development, to provide an environment that is attractive to new investment, to encourage the ongoing maintenance, rehabilitation, redevelopment, upgrading, improvement of external public and private space, and lastly, to protect and promote cultural heritage resources, including buildings and landscapes that are designated under the Ontario Heritage Act. With respect to the downtown master plan, although this is not a policy, it is a document that complements the community improvement plan. It's to provide guidance for the long-term development over the next 5-10 years in the downtown, as well as the neighborhood residential built form areas, which are adjacent to the downtown area. This plan also provides the urban design vision and the guidance for Found Hill by addressing the nature, intensity, and quality of development in both the public and private realm. The application was circulated not only to the members of public, but also to internal and external agencies. To date, the town internal departments, including fire, building, and public works, have provided the following comments. Public Works and Utilities had noted that stormwater management is a requirement, and also that the proposal needs to confirm that the capacity of the current water and wastewater services to serve the development is appropriate. Fire and building, the comments received were that they need to that the proposal shall conform to all applicable legislation, including the Ontario Building Code Act, as well as the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority had noted that the parcel has no environmental features that is regulated by the agency, and therefore offer no objection. The region's Niagara Planning Development Services Department noted in their comments that the provincial and regional policies for efficient use of urban service land and residential intensification is being satisfied. The apartment building will take full advantage of the development potential of the property, and as well as enhance housing choices. With respect to the public comments received, there have been numerous comments. With that, I've taken the liberty to summarize the major issues, comments, and concerns. Please note through reading or noting these comments, if anything is missing, we will more than willing identify them going forward. But the most common themes or issues that have been raised to date is the impact on street parking, traffic volumes on Churchill, the impact on property values, the single driveway access into the site is deficient, the unit sizes are too small, parking lot in the rear of the yard is unattractive, issues with the smell of exhaust, noise, light trespass onto adjacent properties as a result of the rear parking lot, drainage and flooding issues and impact on the drainage channel that runs the length of Churchill into Pelham Street, the garbage waste collection, that being the odors, the rodents, and that it's being unsightly. Snow removal will be an issue. Concerns that the site will attract students or low-income rentals. The misuse of taxpayers' money to provide a grant of $15,000 per unit under the Community Improvement Plan. Proposals will change the neighborhood. The small town feel will be compromised. As well as there have been reference to different policies under the official plan, particularly 1A232, which is the goal for urban character, such that the proposal to respect the character of existing development and ensure that all applications for development are physically compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Secondly, to maintain and enhance the character and stability of existing and well-established residential neighborhoods by ensuring development and redevelopment is compatible with the scale and density of existing development. There is also making reference to A212, which is to restrict and regulate land uses which could impact the water quality and hydrological and hydrogeological characteristics of watercourses, aquifers, and wetlands. In this circumstance, there are no watercourses or aquifers or wetlands. So that policy, with respect to this proposal, is not relevant. With respect to staff's comments, again, please note that these issues, comments, and concerns that were listed is just a summary. If you believe that the comments were not included or you have additional comments, please submit them in writing to the planning department, addressed probably to myself, and they will be included in consideration of this application. Further, I'd like to just say thank you to everybody for taking the time to submit their comments. All of these comments will be considered prior to a recommendation report being presented to council for your approval. And just at the beginning of the presentation, no formal decisions will be made this evening. The purpose is just to present the information on the proposal as well as to solicit information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smythe, for your presentation. I wonder if members of council have any questions for you at this time regarding the presentation, and I no doubt we'll have other questions throughout the evening. I do see Councillor Ribbiak. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. Smythe. Can you clarify for us, please, the grants or any other incentives or cost supports that the proponent might be able to apply if he moves for this, please?
Yes. I'm just going to make reference to my document. Because of the property is located within the community improvement plan boundary, the proposal meets the eligibility criteria for 2 grants. One being the planning application grant. So the planning application with respect to the proposed zoning amendment, noting that this development, if it's to proceed any further, would be subject to site plan control. So that is another Planning Act application. So those fees associated would also be covered under that grant. So that's those fees, totaling approximately $7,500. With respect to the $15,000 per unit, that is the residential intensification grant that the town has at the moment. And currently, those are the 2 applicable grants that this proposal could seek.
Thank you. And just for additional information, I think some of those dollars are shared with the region. They're not all from the town, but there is some cost sharing, especially on the residential intensification grant
That's
from the
correct.
region. Okay, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Durley, then Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, reference was made to another 5-unit building on the street. That is not zoned for 5 units. It's, I understand it's legal non-conforming because the whole street is R2. Is this correct?
Ms. Smythe?
Through to you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. With respect to the goal for urban development, you noted 8.2.3.2. Can you just clarify for me that the rental complex requires a 98-foot frontage, and in this case, if I understand it correctly, it is only a 50-foot frontage?
Ms. Smythe?
Through you, Mr. Chair, are you making reference to the zoning bylaw requirement?
To the urban development.
Okay. With respect to the zoning bylaw, there are 2 residential multiple zones. There is a residential multiple 1 and a residential multiple 2. Staff with the proponent are going to be discussing the most appropriate zone if this moves forward, which would classify under. With respect to residential multiple 2, it is a requirement for a 98-foot frontage. With respect to the residential multiple one, I'll have to just, if I can just grab it. This is my zoning? Yeah. Excuse me. The zoning bylaw for residential multiple, the minimum lot frontage is 19 meters, which is 62.34 feet.
That's not for a podcast. Thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other members of council with questions for Ms. Smythe?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smythe. We may come back to you for additional questions later. Thank you. Now we will hear, as I mentioned earlier, we'll now hear if the applicant wishes to make a presentation. There's the opportunity for the applicant to add to what staff have already indicated regarding their presentation. Mr. Barber, are you going to...
Mayor, would it be too unorthodox to talk at the end? I would like to hear what the neighbors have to say.
we'd like,
We accepted the agenda.
ladies and gentlemen, please. Mr. Barber, in the agenda is now the time that you can respond and give your presentation. We may, if council wishes to hear additional information, we may ask for that from you later on, and thank you for offering that. So, Mr. Barber, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of staff, council. I wanted to stand up here today and just tell you that I grew up in this town. I was born and raised in this town. I went to school here. I attended the school that used to be here on the street. I went to the post office and grabbed my mail where my office currently resides. I formed my business. I moved back from school and formed my business in town. I have a vested interest in the community of doing things that I can be proud of. When the opportunity came up to purchase real estate, I've done this. I've purchased 2 parcels out of interest in doing something for the town, one of which I did on Fallingbrook, down in the sort of Spruce Side neighborhood to buy something, fix up an old house, and sell it again. My interest there was sort of a think tank project to have a project where there's only a client at the end and not during the process. That opportunity is sort of keeps my brain active and gives me something fun to do on weekends. I had criteria for making these acquisitions, and my criteria was that I wanted something that was untouched in many, many years, if not right from the beginning of inception, and that something that was in Fonthill specifically and close to my office. I was browsing the Realtor.ca listings one Sunday while I was off and came across this property on Churchill and bought it under those terms. Not sure what I was going to do with it at the time, but it fit the criteria what I had. It was affordable to buy, and as such, I experimented with some different ideas on how to improve that so that I could either, at the time I was thinking about doing a development of 2 single family. I looked at fixing up as a single family dwelling, but a project nonetheless that was a business project. I worked with town staff to look at a few opportunities that I thought made sense. Through that correspondence with the town, I was brought up to speed about the needs for intensification, and I understood them better after a couple of meetings with the town. That newfound knowledge and insight that I received from the town staff and the pre-consultation meetings allowed me to develop a proposal that you see here today of intensifying that property. I did read through all those documents and considered the idea of character in the neighborhood. I came up with a proposal of maintaining the existing dwelling, which I admit does have character. Also, I find the character on the street is established by the amount of vegetation, including even the boulevard street trees, particularly at 6 Churchill. There's 2 small boulevard trees on that 50-foot wide lot. The other thing that's characteristic of the street, if you're going to define character as being common to things on the street, are the narrow lanes and the single driveways. There isn't these great big 2-car driveways with 2-car garages along there, which is sort of the charm of it, because you see more greenery you do anything else. I tried to identify, in order to prepare for this proposal, is there character common in the dwellings? There's a mix of use of dwellings, all built at all different times in all different styles. So perhaps the character is that there is a variety on the street as well. I want a development that will be good for my family, one that I can be proud of, and I do have respect for the neighborhood and the neighbors that are in there. I have put this proposal together based on not only this new information that I've been working through, studying up on all the documents, but it is also a result of the efforts of going out for the last 10 years to all the different planning meetings and working with the consultants to put my public input into all of these. Perhaps it was in the back of my mind at the time that that was going to be the case, that I'd get an opportunity for this. Certainly wasn't when I bought it on the Sunday, but I'm glad that I have a proposal that I can be proud of that allow for some intensification close to the downtown and give some people a great place to live. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barber. Do members of council have any questions for Mr. Barber? Thank you very much for your presentation, and as was stated, if required, you'd be interested in or able to answer any questions, so thank you for that offer. We appreciate that. Thank you. Now we'll move to public input. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a presentation to councilors? I see that the clerk has put a description here. What we would ask is a couple of things. First of all, those that can come forward would please come to the podium. Please don't be scared or nervous about that. This meeting is being taped, and we want to videotaped, and we want to make sure that you can be heard on that, and it'll be posted on our website. Second, we're hopeful that by using the microphone that everybody in the room can hear. And the third and final thing is, for the record of committee, we'd like you to say your name and your address so that you can help us, and the clerk will be noting that in the minutes, the written minutes that will be formed part of this meeting. Okay? I did see someone put up their hand. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Justin O'Donnell. I reside at 9 Donahue Drive in Font Hill. I'd like to raise a couple of points of concern that I have with regards to the proposed project by the applicant. First, 6 Churchill has a frontage of less than 50 feet and is one of the narrowest on the street. Secondly, Churchill Street is one of the oldest streets in Font Hill, with a diverse cross-section of residents that includes singles, seniors, couples, young families with children, working professionals, self-employed business people, artists and musicians. Consequently, this is not a neighborhood in need of renewal through intensification, as some have argued. Thirdly, the proposed units are so small that the proposed complex will in reality become a rooming house with parking. Neighboring properties, especially those east downhill from 6 Churchill and to the south in Victory Garden, will be seriously inconvenienced with problems relating to the parking area access, drainage, and snow removal. The requirement, number 4, the requirements needed to create a parking lot at the rear of the property can possibly interfere with the existing drainage channel that runs through the south side of Churchill. Despite the steep incline of Churchill and the drainage channel, properties on the upper half of Churchill have already required a sump pump. Point 5, and my last one, the proposed project does run contrary to the Town of Pelham official plan, and I point specifically to A2.3.2 to respect the character of existing development and to ensure that all applications for development are physically compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood, and section A2.1.2 to restrict and regulate land uses which could impact the water quality and hydrological and hydrogeological characteristics of watercourses, aquifers, and wetlands. So I would respectfully ask the council to please take these points into account when making your deliberations. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Donnell. Appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Other members? Ms. Cuthbertson, or who wants to go first?
Hi, I'm Sharon Williams, and I live at 1398 Pelham Street, number 17, right on the corner of where this lot is going to take place. And when addressing the issue of bylaw rezoning application at 6 Churchill by Forest Green Creations, there was one set of important documents that as at serious odds to the application. The town bylaw. There are a number of issues that conflict with the bylaws, some of substantial variance. If the development plan contained within the application and its attached documentation are allowed to move forward, the bylaws for Pelham might as well be scrapped. We're going to do a PowerPoint presentation in a few moments on that. We all disagree with the conclusion that this application fits Pelham's community improvement plan. A recent OMB decision involving density development passed by council in Clarington, Ontario, found that the council's decision was not in keeping with Clarington's official plan. It went on to say that economic viability is not an adequate planning reason for ignoring the criteria of the official plan. Pelham's Community Improvement Plan on page 46 clearly identifies the properties 4, 6, and 8 on Churchill, which for some reason were added as part of the CPI area, are recommended for conversion to home-based businesses. At no time was this designation changed within the CPI. We also submit that the intensification of this area would make it applicable with the duplex structure which Mr. Barber publicly stated was rejected, but his proposal was rejected by planning. So we'd be interested to know interested to ascertain if staff put up Mr. Barber to this idea with the extra benefits to be found in a multiplex development. This, as this application deals with major variances, I would like to comment on the application form itself. The application form is straightforward, developed by the town, which the applicant is required to fill out, and in this case, there are 2 issues, beyond all the bylaw issues to be presented later. One is number 7, dimensions of the land. The frontage is stated as 52 feet and the rear at 166, both with a notation on deed. The actual frontage is not 49 feet 2 inches as measured between surveyor stakes located in the front of the property. This poses the question, why was the surveyor stake distance not provided? And how does the difference affect the overall layout measurements? Are the surveyor stakes incorrectly placed, or is the deed wrong? So when will this be dealt with? I mean, this has to be figured out too. The frontage is approximately 50% of what the bylaws require for the development being put forth. 50%. Does Mr. Barber expect to find another 49 feet somewhere in the bylaw? I'll bet if I put that in, there'd be some questions asked. And there are swales in section number 21, swales. The use of a storm drainage is part of a PowerPoint presentation later in the meeting. Area residents do have genuine concerns for any disturbance of water movement in the rear areas of the lot along the south side of Churchill. Well, it would likely lead to serious other problems. At present, there are regular water flows issues along this corridor. And in 2006, the satellite image clearly details a small stream running through. In several areas along the runoff path, water accumulates, forming puddle areas and underground spring-like conditions. The contours of several rear areas change with this water flow. They actually change. This is actually very similar to an aquifer. Additionally, there is no storm sewage drains connection available currently, and as the easterly and southerly sides of the rear parking lot will have retaining walls as a result, I would imagine they would anyway, which could cause massive swimming pool creating backup situations, which would have critical adverse effects on the surrounding lands. I've only touched on a few of the concerns about the bylaws, but residents of this community are deeply committed to the rejection of this application and expect council will treat this issue seriously and ponder why it's even reached this stage. We have a PowerPoint, with your permission, we'd like to go forward with. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Williams, for your presentation. Please, go ahead, Ms. Cuthbertson.
Council and community, thank you so much for coming. Okay, my name's Amber Cuthbertson. I live at I live at 8 Churchill. I have a bit of knowledge in terms of zoning and bylaws. I've met Mayor Dave on a couple of projects, including the renovation, the first phase of the renovation of Old Pelham Town Hall, as well as the renovation of the pool house, just down in Maryland Street Park. So I've put together, with the help of the community, a PowerPoint presentation that addresses our concerns and our investigation into the bylaws. I apologize, I am a little nervous and I spilt
Don't be
my
nervous,
dinner
it's
on
okay.
myself tonight.
It's okay. Thank you for putting together a presentation.
But we want to look at or address two questions. One, and the most major one, and this is put forward to everyone, is in whose best interest is the proposed fiveplex being presented? And we'll look at that in reference to the bylaws, the official plan, and the community improvement plan. And then I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, who to direct the second question to, whether I direct it to the planning department or Mr. Barber, but at some point in this meeting, I'd appreciate if someone would clarify. Uh-oh.
This is part of our service. We make it disappear.
Oh, no, what? Okay.
There you go. No problem.
Someone would clarify why, when Mr. Barber presented us with 2 single detached dwellings to myself and the neighbors, Darren and Sandy, who are to the east side of the property, we had no objection to this proposal.
Okay,
It would require variances.
We can ask staff that, but why don't you go through your,
okay.
your presentation first, and then we'll get some of these answers.
The beginning of the presentation is to join all of these people in the issue. These are the homes of Church Hill. They do, and people here do represent Victory Gardens as well as Pelham Road, Cambro, but these specifically are our homes, single detached dwellings. Final property. Oh, I even brought it. Look at this. This is 6 Church Hill right here. So this is 6 Church Hill now. This is 6 Church Hill in 2013. I know there are bylaws in terms of yard maintenance. This property and all the properties up Church Hill, as planning indicated, are zoned R2 as of 11/36. Permitted uses beyond the noted single detached dwellings. You can use uses and building structures supporting that use, as well as home occupations. What's going on? I have a thumb drive. I'm not sure why the rest of the...
No, we apologize. We found out today at 12. We have our own computer and LCD in the car for presentation, and when we came out, we're like, oh, we have our files, and we were at work, right? So I was like, oh, okay. And we tried to email them over, but there were some problems in terms of the email. So what we'll do is we'll go to my computer.
Is this the point where I say, please stand by, we're experiencing technical
Yeah,
difficulties?
this is actually intended to offset our adversaries. There we go. We luckily had multiple copies just in case.
I'm not sure if... Do you support PowerPoint 2007? Okay.
Yes.
No, I'm really shaking. Okay. Back to the presentation. We've seen all this.
I think if you go under slideshow, you can hit, the clerk's going to help you there. There we go.
And again, our homes. Right here.
The same
Okay.
presentation was provided to all of you today, so
Yes.
you got a color copy.
We do.
Just in case this happens, these slides.
Okay, so some
Thank
characteristics
you,
of the
sir.
property, since we live right next door, and we actually had our property surveyed prior to the sale of this property. The frontage is approximately 49 feet. This dark area, this represents the original two-story. The areas are approximate. I do know the house is 22 by 26 and a half, the original brick portion, so that's approximately 1,000 square feet. 700 square feet approximately for the addition at the back, and the garage, standard 22 by 16. And this portion of the driveway here is approximately 8'3". So this is what we live beside. Is what we've been proposed. The areas as taken from the submission package by Mr. Barber include a parking lot for 8 cars, which is not a random number. That is required by law to have 1.2 parking spots per unit. This is at least 50% of the property. This doesn't include actually hard surface right up to the porches. We've also gone through the bylaw violations, and I would note that the comment that this does fall under 2 zones is correct. It falls under village multi-unit residential and multi-unit residential. It does not fall under the one that requires the 63-foot frontage. That is for a fourplex, and the bylaw indicates that when there's conflict between bylaws, you take the most strict conditions and apply those to the proposal. So this property is 49 feet based on a 5-unit apartment, which is considered an apartment. You require 98.45 feet. The east side yard here, between the house and the west property line, Sandy and Darren's, the proposal is for 8'3". Bylaw says you need 19.64 feet. The west side yard here, the existing dimension is 11'10". You require 19.64 feet. The proposal is to maintain, in this area, to maintain the 8'3" driveway. This requirement actually is independent of the property use. When you have a parking lot, you need a safe way in and a safe way out. You need 2 lanes. If they're going to be side by side, you need 24 feet. If you have independent lanes, one coming down this way, one going out that way, you can get away with 9.84 feet for each lane. That adds up to over 18 feet. If you alone look at the side yards, 49 feet, less 20 feet, less 20 feet, that gives you a 9-foot building footprint. When we purchase our homes and we look at an R2 zone, and we look at the size of the lot beside us, there is no way we can at all predict that this would ever be put before council. There is no way. In terms of the parking alone, there are setbacks requirement for a parking lot. The west setback here, the proposed is for, depends on where you measure it. If you measure here, it's just over 3 feet. If you measure here, 0, here, I don't know, 1.5 maybe, you require 9.84 feet. The rear parking setback, it's almost there, 8 foot, 7.5 inches, you require 9.84 feet. Minimum landscape area, you require 35%. This is 29%, that's pretty close, but it includes all of this. And if you've ever been past, I know Mayor Dave, I saw you on Thursday evening, this is incredibly banked. This is not usable in terms of recreation or anything. It does lovely landscaping, but it's not a usable area. This drops off severely, and this inclines back towards the properties to the south.
With trees.
Yeah. The 1-bedroom, the minimum, or the proposed area, and I did this based on the original portion. I didn't take the time, unfortunately, to measure the 1980s edition. A 22 by 26.5 foot footprint. You subtract 1 foot for the building, for the depth of the walls, and then you take out the staircase, which will be required to the unit upstairs, and you've got plus or minus 450 square feet. This, I think, is insulting, not just to the neighbors in terms of concerns about the populational tract. This tells us that if you're a renter in Font Hill, you don't deserve the minimum flooring requirements, because the minimum floor requirements for a renter for a 1-bedroom apartment are over 600 square feet. So yes, we're including renters, but we're not providing them what our bylaws suggest they deserve. Another item is required as amenity area. And this allows people in small units to have some place where they can gather with friends, family. A 1-bedroom apartment, 450 square feet. Sorry, we can't have it at my house. I have no space. Where am I going to put my bicycle? Where am I going to put my Christmas tree? Where am I going to put my snow tires? Where is this area? Storage? I don't know. Garbage, okay, you gotta keep your week's worth of garbage and recycling in your unit, or you can put it out on the porch. There's no provision for storage. When Todd came over and he showed us the plan after we had found out and we had been issued our letter, and my comment was, because I had done a ref calculation and said, your units are undersized, and he admitted they were. And his response was, the bylaws are out of date, and also you'll get used to it.
I was for the parking lot.
I do know St. Catharines bylaws, I worked with them. They were updated in December 2013. For an apartment, you still require 98-foot frontage. In any residential area, multi-unit or otherwise, you can have no more than 20% parking coverage. These are current. And in a low-density residential, which is ours, we're not zoned for duplexes, we're not zoned for quads, you require over 40% landscaping. St. Catharines has far less development potential than we do. We've got the East Font Hills, we've got up under the water tower, we've got loads of land, and we're forcing the life out of one property when you read our official plan, it indicates we're going to surpass our residential intensification standard of 15%. We're on target with these two complexes, these two developments, we're on target to surpass, and yet we're sacrificing the character of one neighborhood on an undersized lot to overdevelop it. And the argument being is we need intensification. It's already been satisfied. So when you do look at our bylaws and you think of an apartment in Font Hill, this is what it indicates. This is Garden Terrace on South Pelham and Font Hill. The landscape, the setback, and this is what is being proposed. I want to use another example. This one is actually in Font Hill, up on Highway 20. I'm not sure aren't here tonight. So this is at 136 Highway 20 in Font Hill. Here's my cursor. This property here, side yard. This existing side yard here is 18 feet to side yard. Our side yard where they're asking for the parking entrance is 11'10". They provided a sorry, it's hard to read. It was scanned. They provided a 15-foot and change aisle. The town chief building officer reviewed this and commented that this was inadequate access to the parking lot. A parking lot for four, a parking lot that only had this narrow width for 40-odd feet, commented this was inadequate, and the owner provided a lay-by for an access of 15 feet wide, not 9 feet wide. 15 feet wide was encouraged to provide a lay-by. They also provided landscaping to buffer the property beside. They were also required to provide a stormwater management plan. And I know in the report it indicates that in one place that a stormwater management plan is required. Every property in the settlement area of Font Hill requires a stormwater management plan. That's nothing new. What we're looking for is a hydrological study, one that tells us how the water that flows under the ground is going to be dealt with. Stormwater management is for the water off your roof, it's for the water off your parking lot. That's runoff. We're talking about the water in the ground. And although it was commented that there is no identified watercourse aquifer, I can tell you that water comes out of the base of our trees. Water runs across the top of our property. There is a culvert under Highland Avenue, which directs town water down the back of those properties. So I have no idea why it was not brought up that there is water that runs actively down there, and we are taking the burden of that water. We are taking the burden of community water. So beyond the bylaws, we're looking at the official plan, and some of this has been noted in planning's presentation. The official, and these are nice things to hear. The official plan assumes the quality of life now enjoyed by town residents can be maintained and enhanced. Sounds great. To respect the character of existing development and ensure that all applications for development are physically compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. I don't really need to read this again, but to maintain and enhance the character and stability of existing, well-established. Where are you, Mettler? Yes. How long have you lived in your house?
Hey,
Where were you born?
come on.
Right there.
Ms. Cuthbertson, please.
Okay, sorry. There are people, this is a well-established neighborhood. We have people living that are in their 70s, that are living in the homes that they were born in. scale and density supposed to be compliant. Well, I want to put to you that the character of a neighborhood is more than just the building itself. The character of the neighborhood involves the entire site. Everybody knows that the traffic on Church Hill is high, parking is stressed, and when the road goes through for the new Font Hill, for the new East Lands development, that's going to increase even more. We're taking on the burden of the traffic and the parking, and what we're asking for are our backyards. Please respect our backyards. These are our backyards. Backyard at 6 Church Hill now. This is the plot now. This is what's being proposed. This is, I didn't take the time to model the whole thing. This is 3-dimensional model to scale of an 8-car parking lot. The slope down, the retaining wall required here, the retaining wall suggested here, here. The new official plan assumes the quality of life now enjoyed by town residents can be maintained and enhanced. Go on to the definition of residential intensification. This is already pointed out, but we'll highlight. Existing vacant land or underutilized land. Please tell me how a single-family home on a 49-foot wide lot is underutilized. You can have a family of 5 live there. 5 apartments of 500 square feet, you can have 5 people living there. We're also told that the town will assess the density of such proposals relative, and we've already gone over this, thank you, planning, to the site. We'll address issues of landscaping. There's no buffer down the west side of that property on the parking lot. There's no room for it. Access. I'm telling you, the reason you need a 2-lane in and out is because it's dangerous. And I can tell you, I've lived there 3 years and I've seen a child hit by a car coming forward out of a driveway on Church Hill. The traffic goes ripping up and down that street and people tear in and out of their driveways to try and beat the traffic. Anybody who lives on that street can tell you the fact. We want to maintain the character, the density of the existing neighborhood. R2, the zoning tells us R2, 1 dwelling per lot. That's the density of the area, 1 dwelling per lot. Again, we're going to get the quality of the design. We're not just looking at the building, landscaping, suitable setbacks, parking areas, traffic movement are not negatively impacted. I think I've made my point. These are all being compromised by this proposal. And that you, council, will be satisfied that it's on a site with adequate land to incorporate required parking, recreational facilities. You can't tell me those are off-site. If these are supposed to be accessible apartments, they require stairs to get down. In the winter, are they going to huck all the way down to Maryland Straight Park and skateboard? I don't think so. There's no area for recreational facilities. The landscaping is not sufficient based on our bylaws for a parking lot setback, and there is no protection for us from the entrance and exit of this parking lot on site. This is what our official plan does tell us. And this is, oh, I cited it, see, so you can check yourselves. The creation of accessory apartments and in-law suites within residential neighborhoods is considered an appropriate form of residential intensification. It says it in our official plan. So I ask you again, why are we not considering 2 units? Why are we considering 5? You want to look at another situation, a duplex, which this is not zoned for a duplex. A duplex still requires 62-foot frontage, 9-foot side yards, floor area. This is actually, we might even work with this. The residents on our street might work with this. At least the people have area to live. How about a single detached dwelling? You only need a floor area of 590 square feet for a 2-story. Why are we not looking at renovating this as a single? In terms of the environmental, I want to point out the slope. And anybody who's tried to go down 6 Church Hill, Judy's husband, Hydro, doesn't go down the hill in his hydro trucks because of the slope of this hill. This is off of Niagara Peninsula Escarpment website. These are 1 meter contour lines. This is 6 Church Hill. 1 meter, 2 meter. This property drops 2 meters across the back. I've indicated where we've observed the water flowing. Connects up with the culvert up at the top, down here. Drops approximately 2 meters across the rear yard, 5 meters to South Pelham. I've spoken to the owners of the gelato shop. On those heavy rains, that water coming down Church Hill comes right up to their door threshold. That's 8 inches, 9 inches above the ground. This is Sandy. She and Darren live at 4 Church Hill on the other side. So based on where we're standing, this is probably 60 feet away. There's her head, the top of her head, relative to the garage. So this would be approximately, I'm guessing 10 feet here. That's how far down the property beside is. This image was provided by one of the residents at Victory Garden. This is the swale along South Pelham. This is Volcano Pizza across the road. It's hard to see here, but this bioswale is completely full. And this is with just the water for Victory Gardens. Our official plan says to ensure and understand the natural environment, including the values, opportunities, limits, and constraints that it provides, guide land use and decision making by the town. We are providing you with the information. There are residents here who've worked for the plan for the town building department, and they've confirmed that when there are problems with that drainage, the water backs all the way up the hill and floods the backyards. It's known by planning that this exists. The plan also says to make decisions to avoid negative impacts as a first priority, and secondly, to mitigate the negative impacts. To restrict and regulate land use, restrict and regulate, that could impact the water quality, I'm running out of words, hydrological and hydrogeological characteristics of watercourse, aquifers, and wetlands. We are approaching the Conservation Authority to have this area evaluated again, because if you go back, this is 8 Church Hill. This is an environmental protection area to less than a meter from the edge of this property. Why does it stop here? Should it be continued on to here? I think that should be looked into. And then on to the community improvement plan. These are the bounds. I've disregarded my notes completely. These are the bounds of the community improvement plan. In terms of downtown Font Hill, there's a similar diagram for Fenwick. This was adopted in 2006. These are the only R2
2010.
zoned properties within this bound. I have notes regarding that. One item that planning neglected to mention, well, not neglected, they answered the question specifically, the grants that are available for these properties. I will also tell you that the properties within these bounds are exempt from development fees, and these development fees can be sizable. These development fees range from $12,000 for a single family home to $5,000 for an apartment. These properties all within here are exempt. The grants that were already mentioned, a tax rebate 70% for 10 years, 70% of the increase, for 10 years. The planning fees, so the zoning amendment won't have to be paid for any other legislative requirements. They won't have to be paid for. 100% the taxpayer will be covering those. And then the residential intensification. These are the questions you're asking. 15% of the cost of rebuilding would be $15 a square foot for inhabitable space, $15,000 per unit, and the maximum quota we can have, 5 units per property. This is a 5-plex. I ask you again, why are these 3 properties isolated within these bounds when they're the only 3 that are zoned R2? And perhaps we should consider redrawing the bounds. I can't recall official plan or improvement plan. This indicates
The
the
official
areas
plan.
of potential intensification. So we have up here behind Peachtree, we have here along Haste, down here along, is that Rice Road? No, not Rice Road, South Pelham. It also indicates, and this was brought up by town in the amendment, the downtown area. This downtown area, these are the R2 properties right here. We're not within the bounds of downtown. And I will point out in the document submitted by circulated in preparation for this, it indicates that single and semi-detached dwellings are not allowed in the downtown. This is not the downtown. These properties do not fall within the downtown. They're eligible for single and semi-detached homes. And then, when you look at the community improvement plan, why are these properties included? What was the specific purpose? I can tell you in 2008, this line was drawn here. It only included general commercial downtown properties that fell within the downtown bounds only. These properties would not have been eligible for funding in 2008. Following the community improvement plan draft in 2009, these properties were identified specifically for home-based business. That's why they were included within the bounds. This proposal is asking for, well, we can ask planning how much money they're asking to apply for. Sizable tens of thousands of dollars to allow for this intensification, which these properties were never identified for. Revisit, there are two zones. So yes, it allows for a single-family detached home, the supporting uses of, and lo and behold, home occupation. This actually satisfies the community improvement plan. It's already zoned for a use that falls within the community improvement plan. And we're asking to scrap the community improvement plan, our bylaws, and the official plan for something that this property was never intended for. The official plan even goes on to say to encourage the development of home-based businesses and home industries, provided the use is compatible with the adjacent properties. This is a lot of money the taxpayer is being asked to put forward for something that was never intended to be used for. In terms of potential properties, here's a suggestion. This is on Station Street. 165,000, perfectly flat, vacant land. Oh, it's even wider. You could put a fourplex here. If you negotiate with the town, I bet you could put a fiveplex here. It's 88 feet wide. So this is what we're saying. We do not disagree with intensification. What we demand is that our official documents, our bylaws, our community improvement plan, and our official plan are upheld. This has nothing to do with our properties. This has nothing to do with intensification. This is profit-taking and paving. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very... Thank you very much for your very comprehensive presentation. Question that planning staff indicated that they would be willing to answer. Mr. Glover, the first question here about Mr. Barber's proposal for 2 single detached dwellings. Can you shed some light on it, and maybe Mr. Barber can add something too? Go ahead, Mr.
Absolutely. Mr. Barber came into town to inquire about putting 2 single detached properties abutting each other on this property to basically sever the property into 2, which would leave 24-foot frontage with the driveway, would give approximately a 16-foot wide house. We felt that was uncharacteristic of the area. We didn't fulfill the full opportunity for intensification, and we recommended that may be difficult to support. Mr. Barber took the information back and came back with this plan. Again, we're not supporting nor denying this plan. Again, we're taking information and we'll evaluate it for our recommendation report to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Glover. Questions? Are there any questions for Ms. Cuthbertson from members of council? It was a very comprehensive report, but Councillor Papp has a question. Would you mind answering a question from the councillor?
I'm happy to answer.
Okay, I'll try.
Let's try.
Let's try. It's just, through you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Cuthbertson, thank you. Very comprehensive. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the hydrological. Is there some indication, or do we have some idea that there's some underground stream there?
There's a tile line in our backyard. There's a culvert on the Mettler's property. Above that, there's a catch basin in the property in Sandy and Darren's property at number 4. And there is a culvert. You can go up and look yourself on Highland Avenue, a culvert that directs water down that back area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I just, I had my family moved here many, many years ago, and when you mentioned that, I was trying to remember the flow, and when you mentioned Highland Culvert, we'll definitely investigate that. I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Thank you for answering that. Other questions for? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We greatly appreciate it. Are there any others that would like to make a presentation? And again, your name and address, please, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Dave, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation to you. You've had a lot of information put into your brain right now. It'll take a while to split it out and make it worthwhile, the information. However, the role of elected officials in any
name,
community
sir, please,
is to
and your-
protect the...
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
it's a
George
public meeting,
Ketter,
so we have to-
1398 Pelham Street.
Thank you so much.
It was too long.
I apologize for cutting you off. Go
No
ahead,
problem.
please.
The role of elected officials in any community is to protect the integrity of the system which residents rely on. Failure to do so erodes the faith of the populace to trust the officials and results in overturned verdicts when the verdicts fail logic and reasoning tests. The role of support staff in any process is to receive applications, ensure the information given is complete, where applicable, to investigate incompatibilities, and finally, to prepare reports which will provide substantive information allowing council to reach a reasonably intelligent decision. On page 3 of the issue summary report under heading Places to Grow, number 6G states, identify the appropriate type and scale of development in intensified areas. The recommended site plan on page 46, as highlighted in Amber's presentation of the CIP, identifies a conversion to commercial home-based businesses for this property. Section 6J states, encourage the creation of secondary units throughout the built-up area. In our opinion, while the property has been identified for a purpose which is totally reasonable for that area, the wording in J, secondary suites, certainly does not mean a 5-unit multiplex development of less than 600 square feet per unit. It's actually considerably less than that. The size of these units does not meet our bylaw requirements and certainly would qualify it as a rooming house versus an apartment. That this matter has even made it to a hearing stage is an insult to the integrity of our residents. The Planning Services Department knew, or should have known, that additional variances would have to be conceded by the town. A simple examination of the documentation would have highlighted some of the variances within the bylaws. This information was not presented in the report. In addition, residents have provided letters of objection detailing some of the concerns, none of which has been presented as part of the Planning Services Department report except as public comments. Their failure to investigate and include these issues as an integral part of their report to the mayor, council, and concerned residents indicates they do not perceive this as part of their role in the process. That's where I'm leading with this. If this is the case, we suggest their role needs to be more clearly defined, possibly even set to ISO standards. They are the support staff that you, council, count on. The Planning Services Department, as the overseer of all applications it receives, has an obligation...
Mr. Ketter, this is about an application, a public hearing about an application, and
yes.
I'd ask that you constrain your comments to that as opposed to our department and our staff. I would respectfully ask you to do that, please.
Well, I'm trying to lead to the process itself, which has made this very difficult. Let me rephrase it slightly then. We are simple residents. When this process started, we knew absolutely nothing about the process that we were going to be put through. When the initial documentation came out from planning, nothing within that documentation highlighted what the deficiencies with this project were. In our estimation, that should have been part of the initial documentation that was presented to the residents and to you as council as part of this application. My thing is that the process has failed the residents of Font Hill, totally and
Okay.
incorruptibly. I don't think we need to envision what will happen if this development goes through. You've seen a lot of information presented to you. A lot of it has to do with the water runoff. A lot of it has to do with the bylaw infractions or variances that are going to have to be seeked. To date, that has never been mentioned. You will have to take the document and isolate the individual parts of the bylaw to the proposed plan. That has not been done by the planning department. Having said that, I think you probably get the gist of where I'm leading. The process of planning services has to be defined, and it hasn't been. Thank
what
you
I'm,
very much.
what I'm going to do, Mr. Ketter, is I'm going to ask staff, just, and really for the public as well as council, just to fill us in a little bit more on the process. Okay, are you finished? I don't want to cut you off, though.
No, I'm perfectly fine with any question which you have
Okay.
to give me. I agree with you totally. The process is something that the residents count on.
Okay,
We
so-
believe the process has failed us, and that's really the
Well,
gist of my
I'm
conversation.
sorry you feel that way. We are following a legislative process from the province. I'm going to ask staff to maybe comment on the process, what one does when one receives an application, how is that dealt with, and then I may add some commentary to that. Mr. Glover?
The process was followed in this application. Any applicant, whether it be yourself or Mr. Barber or anyone else, is able to make an application under the Planning Act for whatever the use may be. It's up to staff to communicate that application to the public as well as to council to gather information. We then take that information back, as well as comments received, as well as comments from council or anywhere else, agencies such as conservation, the region, et cetera. We take that information back, we deliberate, we understand, we look at the bylaws, we look at the official plan policies, the community improvement plans, and then we spit back a report in form of a recommendation report that goes through everything you're speaking to, all the issues that are brought up tonight, all the issues that we discover on our own, all the issues that council may bring forward. We present that in a recommendation report that council then can decide if we've fulfilled our obligation to present them with proper information. So what we've done this evening is just brought information to you as per the applicant's application. And we're asking for your information to provide us so we have proper information to deliberate and to discuss amongst ourselves and to investigate and to provide a response to those answers to council so that they can make a decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glover. And I think
May I respond?
I'm just going to
briefly?
comment a little bit further, sir.
Yes, sorry.
And that is, as has been said a number of times, I said it at the beginning, I read it, I even said it after, that this is a time to listen. And you were asking in your comments for staff to come forward with the deficiencies of the application, et cetera. That will be the next step. This is this, if there are any, and you've identified a certain number. So all of those pieces of information that you've identified, and may still be identified, and we may receive other letters, et cetera, all of that will be dealt with when it comes forward to the next step. This really is just the listening phase. This is the fact-finding phase. This is getting information from the applicant. This is getting information from members of the public. So to prejudge an application is not part of this process. The judgment of that information, of the facts, and the opinion, and the character, and all those things that were talked about so comprehensively will come next. This is just the fact-finding, the listening stage.
Might I put a question to the chair? Go ahead. If that is the structure that this process follows, why did they arbitrarily reject his first application for a duplex? Mr. Barber has publicly stated that it was planning that rejected his duplex application, not that Mr. Barber withdrew it.
Right. So we already heard some of that, so I'm going to ask Mr. Glover to respond to that briefly, and then we'll see if there's some other folks that want to make presentation.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Glover.
Mr. Mayor. The planning staff would never reject an application unless perhaps it didn't meet the Planning Act requirements for statutory application. In the case of Mr. Barber, he came forward with an proposed application for two single detached dwellings. We recommended or suggested that it'd be difficult for planning staff to support that, given the character and the area that we felt needed to be reviewed anyways, in the intensification of the site, which is possible on the site. We did not reject it, and Mr. Barber took that application back. He came back with another application with a fiveplex, which we went forward with. So in terms of, because we didn't make a decision to reject the application, we provided information to Mr. Barber, and he chose to come back with a different application. He could have came forward with the two singles, which we would have been speaking of this evening, but he came back with the fiveplex.
Okay.
Thank you,
I
Mr. Glover.
apologize to the mayor and to the council if we misunderstood what Mr. Barber told a newspaper reporter. But having said that, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ketto. We appreciate your feedback, and pleased to have this as well, because it really is despite the fact that we're behind this desk here, it is intended to be a communication, a listening exercise, a gathering of information exercise, and that's what we're doing this evening, and a great presentation as well. Are there any others that would like to make a presentation? And don't forget your name and address, please, sir.
Dale Smith. I also live at 8 Church Hill. I'm lucky enough to be married to the brain that put this presentation on for you. I do want to remind all of council, we're not planners. We're not bylaw lawyers. We're not counselors. We're not planning departments. I'm a teacher. My wife works in architecture down at a firm, engineering. When this plan came out, and by the way, we moved into Fonthill as well 3 years ago, right? We were looking for a place to buy. We were renting out in Port Dalhousie because Amber rode for Canada for a number of years. Her rowing career was coming to an end. I rode in St. Catharines as well. And we decided to get out of Port Dalhousie because, it's too stuffy, right? So we moved out. We were looking for a place to live. All my life as a kid, I remember Keith's Restaurant. We used to come out tobogganing on Effingham Hill, go to Keith's Restaurant, you get hot chocolate, pie if your parents are really happy with you, right? So Amber came up the morning after race and said, Dale, look at this on MLS. House on 8 Church Hill. We drove up after the race. A gentleman by the name of John Glaves, who also lived in this area for 30-something years. He was standing behind the house, and I asked him, I said, look, could we buy the house? And he goes, I've taken it off the market. Don't even want anything. You know what? People aren't willing to give me what we want. At that point, we sat and told him, we said, look, please, I worked, along with being a teacher, I worked for a custom home builder for a number of years, and Amber works in architecture. I said, please, we'll redo the house. We just want to know. We want to do with our house what Todd Barber just mentioned. And by the way, Todd, I take you at your word, man. You know what? Like, I do. I saw his house he's building up over on Overholt Road. I don't think it's ugly. I don't think you build bad stuff. And by the way, Susan, when you mentioned me, because I was upset when I first came in, although very respectful, I said, I have a problem with this. And you said, Dale, Todd builds wonderful stuff. That's what you said. We had people in the bottom listening. My comment to you was I was worried because Todd is in business for himself. That's why he's here. He's here to make money, and I encourage him to do so. My issue is when we invested in Fonthill, we honestly didn't even think this was close to possible. We moved to this place. We told John, tell you what do you want? I want this, Dale. We wrote the check. We're in Fonthill. We're part of the neighborhood. We're down at Beamer's all the time. We're down on Thursdays buying stuff at the markets. We see you all over the place asking you about the idea of chickens around. We're a part of this neighborhood. We want to be here. We want to be a part of Pelham. I'll tell you what this whole process has done. It's brought us into Pelham. It's brought all of our neighbors together. I didn't know 9/10 of the people sitting here. Now, this is my issue, and this is why I bring all of this up. Because you folks are required, or no, you know what, you represent us, and you represent yourselves, because you're members of this town. So, you make decisions based on information. Everything in this presentation tonight that was laid before you was provided by the town. Everything that was done showed you the upsides. I have to remind, when I went to the town, my comment to you, because I have the piece of paper that I got from you. It's worn through. This is what I was given. Actually, it was smaller than this, but I took. Susan, you said, you know what, Dale, would be nice. It's still folded in half from the way I folded it when I talked to you. I said, Susan, that's a parking lot. That's a parking lot. That's not nice. How would you like it in your yard? I wouldn't, Dale. I wouldn't. And then she went on to tell me, but it follows with the plan. It follows the town plan. No, it doesn't. It never did. And they know it. They know it doesn't follow. And I'll tell you how I know they didn't know. Not one thing here in their presentation tonight let any of you know. Not one thing. John, when I chatted with you on the phone first, you said, you're in 6 Churchill. Oh, I'm going to drive by. I said, you know what? I drove by, Dale. I don't see it. It was off the record, probably. I'm sorry.
Hopefully
It's
still
funny,
is.
though, right? So we sat there, and at first we were terrified. As soon as Amber heard about this, she started crying in the house. Dale, this is our dream. This is the first house we bought, by the way. Married 11 years. I taught out in BC, out in Thorold while we were living in Port Dalhousie, and we saved money over 11 years while encouraging and spending $250,000 on a rowing career. We saved our money, put it away to buy. And then when we found out after we bought our dream, drive past our house in 8 Churchill, the new roof, $12,000. The new furnace, $3,000. The new wood stove, $7,000. The second floor, gutted out, and the drywall dust is in our lungs. We're part of this place. I was upset, and Mayor Dave, you do have to apologize, or I do have to apologize when I say that this is important to me. Because if we hadn't have provided you with all this information tonight, because I'm telling you, Amber, myself, George, a bunch of us have gotten minor degrees in bylaw, planning, development. I've read OMB decisions. By the way, they promote 64% on the developer's behalf, unless you're doing it just to make money. Then you tend to lose. Why? I'm a grade 6, 7 teacher. I love kids. I coach sports. I coach rowing. Why has the last month of my life been consumed fretting over this? My wife, we're lucky, because if we didn't have her, what would we do? We researched all this information ourselves. This is your job. This is your job, not mine. Todd, you know the bylaws better than we do. You're an honest man. You knew that the apartments didn't meet the right sizes when you came to our house. Because whatever didn't tell you, we called you on that. He was honest after we told him. I said this, if you're going to present stuff to the town, if you're going to advertise stuff to the people, to us, inform us about what's going on. Please inform us. Tell us about all the bylaws, please. Tell us about how this doesn't fit in with the plan. Because we need to know how to protect our investment as somebody coming into Fonthill. Now, Todd, again, you probably, you do build on stuff. This isn't about you. And actually, I'm not trying to dehumanize you. We want to have a process that the people in Pelham can have faith in. Because if you're going to draw people in, we're the new people you just drew in. If you're going to draw us in, we have to know we're safe. We have to know we can trust you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. We appreciate your very personal comments, and we understand that properties are very personal things. So thank you very much for reminding us of that. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment, especially if there's something new that hasn't been said? Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentations, and we appreciate the information. Now for committee input, if there's any questions from members of council, members of our planning committee, for staff or for anyone else, if you have any questions that you might have. Councillor Pat?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the Director for Planning and Ms. Smythe. Is there any evidence of any traffic studies that have been done at Churchill I'm not aware of anything, or maybe there has been.
Mr. Glover?
As part of, the, we're going to take this information from this evening and bring it back to Mr. Barber and discuss things with him. As part of the recommendations for us to go forward, we're going to need some information on traffic to better understand if there's any implications, any hazards, et cetera. And we'll need some form of professional to advise us that either there is, it's mitigated, or there's not, before we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Glover, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to our planning staff. We've heard a number of times about the drainage on the south end of all of these lots along Churchill. And in fact, there is a catch basin at the top that seems to direct through a culvert and onto the south side of these lots. Are there easements across here? Is it an official drainage facility that's been established there by way of easement, or is it something that's just kind of evolved over time?
Mr. Glover?
I don't have the answer for that. We will find that out and discuss it and review it in terms of the recommendation reports, so you have that information before you make a decision. My understanding, though, currently is that there's riparian rights over the property as the water flows downhill, and that the applicant on any development, whatever it may be, will be required to control stormwater on his site that he creates, as well as ensure that the riparian rights of water flowing downhill continues to be able to do that. So there should, whatever the result of this may be, for any development at all, it should improve the stormwater situation on that site. Perhaps not on the street, not make it worse, but not make it any better, but the site itself will take that stormwater away, so it won't be adding to that flow, what it is.
Thank you.
Would it be coming down to Victory Gardens, to where we have that swell?
Sorry, this is time for committee input. And I appreciate your question, and perhaps Mr. Glover can take that in consideration when provide the answer to question in the public report. Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a follow-up, perhaps I could direct a number of questions to the applicant. Not to put you on the spot, Todd, but
Okay,
perhaps.
let's see if members of the committee, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Absolutely. Barbara, are you okay with that? Okay. Would you mind just going here so we can get it recorded and also folks can hear you? Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the indulgence, Council. Todd, could you perhaps speak to the issue of stormwater management and the drainage that's on the south side of your lot, how you intend to deal with that? You've heard concerns of the neighbors. I just wondered if you had a response to that.
Mr. Barber?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We have engaged the services of an engineer to start a preliminary stormwater management study. The initial findings of the stormwater management study proved positive, and that the stormwater could be managed quite well on the site. Allowing a large enough buffer at the south end should be able to channel the existing water past the property to maintain those riparian rights as they exist.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a follow-up, also, Todd, concerns have been expressed regarding buffering for such things as lighting of the parking lot, driveway or car lights, just the closeness of the neighbors to the site. Now, we haven't got the site plan. We haven't seen the site plan per se in all its detail, but could you comment on that and how you intend to mitigate some of those concerns?
Mr. Barber?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the site plan that was drafted for submission was a sort of a first iteration based on sort of what we anticipated might be the goals for that site. Those goals are still yet to be determined as a product of this meeting and other input that we've had. I see that based on the comments that have been received and the direction this is going in, larger buffering would be necessary, which might mean fewer parking spaces, which would be less stormwater issue, giving a little bit more real estate to buffer those properties. Currently, the existing rear yard is quite low relative to the surrounding properties on two sides for sure. And so the cars are well below and easily buffered in terms of headlights, and parking lot lighting would not have to be massive given the residential scale of the development.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions that councillors have for Mr. Barber since he's there at the podium? Councillor Lane?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a general question, and may you may or may not be able to answer it, I don't know. With your history in town, and that, could you, how many 600 square foot apartments do you know of that are existing, that are viable in town?
Mr. Barber?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We won a Niagara Community Design Award in 2013 for a mixed-use building at 1471 Pelham Street. Has 3 units, which are 508 square feet apiece. Based on that, the success of that project, through feedback from the tenants that reside there, as well as the landlord that owns the property and commissioned the service of it, we felt it was viable to have small apartments or smaller apartments. There's a new development being proposed as well at 1518 Pelham Street, where the apartment size is slightly over 600 square feet for 8 units. And that seems also to be quite viable in terms of the feedback the owner has had over the rental for those.
Thank you. Councillor? Others? For Mr. Barber. Thank you very much, Mr. Barber. And I'm going to see if there are other members of the council that have questions or for staff. I have a couple of questions, and whether you can answer these now or whether these can be addressed in the report, it would be helpful, I think. There has been much commentary, Mr. Glover, regarding the community improvement plan and the grants. And I know that there was comment about the development charges under Ms. Cuthbertson's presentation. My understanding, and I'd ask you to either comment on this or research it, that some of those guidelines, I call it a carrot and a stick approach. So one has to achieve certain things like a certain design to achieve the grant. Or under the development charge exemption, I think 50% might be exempt totally, but the remaining 50 is based on certain criteria of intensification, et cetera. Mr. Glover, are you able to answer that, or Ms. Smythe, or would you just be able to answer that in the report?
Ms. Smythe will add some information on this.
Ms. Smythe?
Sure, Mr. Chair, through you. Yes, that is correct. With respect to the DC development charges, with the region, there is a 50% refund if there is a conversion from a single detached to another use. So not 100% is exempted from development charges.
Okay, thank you. And then I'd ask you to just clarify whether design guidelines fall into place in when other exemptions occur. When you can answer that in the report. There were also a number of comments, and in fact, we had a question from a member of council about the property width. And some members of the public stated that it goes against the bylaw. Is that not part of the zoning? That's why we're here? Is that they're seeking exemption from the zoning bylaw? Is that correct? Can we just hear a little bit more about that, please?
Mr. Chair, through to you, that is correct. The purpose of a zoning amendment is such that a proposal coming forward to seek consideration for approval is that the proposal doesn't meet the bylaw regulations, and they're requesting changes to that will allow or permit the proposal to going forward. Also worth noting is that the bylaw is over 27 years old, 25, 27 years old, and the town is undertaking a new comprehensive zoning bylaw exercise, such that the bylaws will be aligned and conform to the new official plan policies that have just been approved by the Ontario Municipal Board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. But in terms of the comment, that's why people say that it doesn't meet it. I think it's important to clarify that that's one of the reasons why we're here. So I appreciate that. Final thing, Mr. Glover, in terms of next steps. You spoke about how we got here. Can you just fill in committee and members of the public about what the next steps might be?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we intend to do is there's a number of comments, a number of passionate pieces of information that have been expressed tonight. We're going to take that information back. We're going to speak with the applicant. We're going to discuss, Mr. Robert suggested some changes offhand this evening. We're going to solidify what the application either it continues to be or has morphed into. If there's substantial changes to what the application is, I feel through you, Mr. Mayor, that we may go to an open house information session to bring this information to the public so that you have a chance to understand or digest what the application is in front of you before it comes back to council for recommendation. This will be an opportunity for you to provide further comments on any changes to the design and see if it meets the objectives of your community, as well as gives planning staff some more information that we can base our recommendation report upon. At which time we'll create a recommendation report going through all the discussions that we've had, the information, giving the planning's opinion on these matters, and then presenting that to council for final approval. We, obviously, the timeframes of this, pardon me?
Final consideration.
Final consideration. I'm sorry. The timelines of this is basically we have to meet with the applicant, figure out a timeframe with if we're going to have a public meeting in terms of an information session or not, and then write a recommendation report which we can bring back to council for consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glover.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any further input from members of committee? Okay, there being none, the next item on the agenda is presentation of resolutions. Okay, this is the same as that one, is that correct? Okay, perfect, thank you. So we have a couple of resolutions here, and this will form part of our minutes and make this public. It's been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the Committee of the Whole receives the issue summary report as it pertains to the zoning bylaw amendment application, file number AM 1014 by Forest Green Creations, Inc., for the subject parcel located at 6 Church Hill. And the committee directs planning staff to prepare a recommendation report for council's consideration. Comments or questions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Council will recall we did add an addendum report, and it has been moved by the same, Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The Committee of the Whole receives the issue summary report as an amendment to the information report as it pertains to the zoning bylaw amendment application file number AM 1014, Forest Green Creations, Inc., for the subject parcel located at 6 Churchill. That is the addendum report. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next resolution has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the correspondence received at the public meeting held on September 8th, 2014 regarding the application for zoning bylaw amendment file AM 1014 be received for the information of committee and referred to the Director of Planning and Development Services as follows. S. Fairburn, L. and W. Murray, D. and L. Mettler, D. and V. Mettler, K. Braun, K. Zawali, B. and S. Redkoff, S. Ketter, G. Ketter, L. Buckner, S. Braun, C. Crozier, D. Hay, D. and D. Talbert, L. Mills, and K. Vanderzee, B. Krislenko, I apologize if I'm getting names wrong, please forgive me, C. and G. Carmichael, P. Peroshi, D. and S. Witteveen, P. Pizowski, I got that wrong, sorry, G. Williams, L. Clark, G. Laundrie, E. Smith, A. Cuthbertson, S. Williams, S. Smith, S. Fobb, S. and B. Kislenko, M. and B. Nauer, A. Brown, A. Kovach, and C. Lorimer. And in addition, the information we received this evening, which is a presentation by A. Cuthbertson. Comments or questions on any of those items? You have a comment?
Just quickly,
Go ahead,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, you've made it very clear, and this is to the general public, that this flow of information doesn't cease at this point. And I think the mayor, that you can continue, if there's any other pieces of information that has remained to this development application, please send them through to our staff, because we welcome this, we've been through this before, so the more you give us, the more it makes it easier, and I know you made that clear, and I just want people to understand that.
Thank you very
Doesn't
much.
stop.
Thank you, Councillor Papp, for underscoring that. Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering if you did acknowledge Ms. Amber Cuthbertson's report. We did have two other comments from two other people in that, and I'm just wondering if we can get those things in writing so that they can be part and parcel. I know our clerk has taken notes on it, but if you could give us a written form of what you did present for the record, and that certainly will make sure that we don't miss anything. And that's
Ms. Williams and Mr. Ketter?
Okay.
sort of the either sides of that presentation. Thank you, Councillor Durley. So I think to follow both, to build on what both councillors are saying, if you can submit that.
Without all my little lines and wiggles on it.
Okay.
Drop it off tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? One other thing on this, and I think what we should do, I asked the clerk regarding this, that there was a presentation by staff, as you know, and I've asked that that also be included in the minutes of the presentation so that members of the public, council didn't have that either. So if members of the public and council can have that when we use this in the future. Okay, Mr. Glover?
So, Mr. Chair, just for the public's consideration, we'll have it up on our website under the planning department by Wednesday noon, if not earlier.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything further? There being none, I do need to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This is it. And it's been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that this special meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until our next regular committee scheduled for Monday, September 15th, 2014, unless sooner called by the mayor. You're all welcome to join us then, too. Thank you so much. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.